Hi, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a book review. It's also a try not to grin because we're just gonna be ranting and raving. But before we even get into it, I absolutely suggest this book. It is so good, and it's been on my list to read for such a long time. Well, listen to. I'm one of those filthy degenerates that actually listen to the mass majority of their books because of just time, and I like to do stuff while I learn, I guess. Anywho, this book was a bloody nightmare to try to find on audio. There was one on Amazon you could buy, but it was like a CD version, because what? Because that a thing? Anyways, regardless, ladies and gentlemen, this book I wanted to read so badly that I actually read it. Which your boy does not read that much at all, because I don't know if I have dyslexia or what. I don't want to say I do, because that's just, I don't know, I don't want another thing to add to like the list of things wrong with me. So I mean, it's hard for me to read. Anyways, regardless, I got through it, and oh boy, is it amazing. Now, I guess, again, your boy's coming at you with more self-help books. Some of you guys are going to think, Grin, are you okay? Are you like severely depressed? Not usually. I just want to improve and become a greater man and a better version of myself. I like all that stuff, alright? I'm the kind of person that listens to like The Rock say, get after it! And I'm like, yes. Totally calm, but will do. Okay. Anywho, this book that I'm suggesting to you guys is called With Winning in Mind. Now, the book kind of covers that topic, but the book also, we're going to get into it, but it covers the idea of how to become a winner. And I know that has a connotation around it, or at least it did for me. I always looked at the people who were obsessed with like winning and like you gotta be a winner, and just like this with that kind of like soccer ball coach dad that's just too invested in his child being what he couldn't be. You know, like something like that. Just some sort of relentless, winning is the only thing that matters. Pain, suffering, all that. And I always thought, well, that just doesn't seem, I don't know, it's like romantic or like proper, you know? And it isn't. In the book, it actually, the guy goes into it about what winning actually is and how to be. It's not even about winning per se, but it's about having a winning mindset and having a winning process that makes you into a person that is the best. And I think that's the best way to put it. Is it's not about winning, it's about being the best that you can be in this activity if you are willing to give these things to it. And for those guys who are like, well, who's gonna teach me this? Why is this book so fantastic? Well, the reason why I think the voice behind this book is pretty hefty is that this guy is a world record champion in the Olympic scene, who around, I think, rifle shooting, just shooting in general. So he's an Olympian. He's an Olympian that I think is one, like, he's broken a ton of world records, and he's also like competed at a high level forever. And not only that, the first couple of chapters of the book are him explaining that he was terrible at like everything, and that he was quote unquote a loser, a person that just was not athletically well off, didn't have the right muscle structure and all that stuff, and like physique to be a good soccer player, a good baseball player, whatever his examples were, I can't remember, but he was quote unquote a loser. Not in the sense of like you have no value, but in the sense of he never got picked first, he always lost, that kind of thing. And then he grew up to be an Olympian, and specifically in his chosen field, which was shooting, which was kind of something where he was like, okay, you don't need to be like physically amazing, you don't need to be like really, really tall with the ball, you just need to be really, really good at staying still and working towards this tiny thing. So of course he picked shooting because it was the least physically demanding thing. But arguably with his process, I think you could probably get after or like drastically improve yourself. Now, I looked into this book, and I heard a lot of people talk about it before I read it, just because I wanted to know what was it kind of all about. Is it just one of these things where this guy yells at you for 10 minutes about how you can get after it, and I'm just like, okay, but like how? you got it. Where do I start? You're so unhelpful. Well, that's a lot of the self-help genre. But one of the things I want to say before we even get into the subject matter of this book, it is one of the best written books I have ever read. It is so masterfully laid out, like to where I don't know if like you could be in the lowest grade possible and read this book and get it. The way the guy like, and it makes sense. I think he said he really did the book like 1,000 times or something crazy. Not redo the book, but he worked really hard. I think that's what he said, to make it so that it is the most understandable thing ever, so that no one has an excuse, basically. And I totally agree. This book, again, as a person who struggles greatly with reading, it was a breeze. And the way that he lays out things is like, you know how when someone like makes a point and they try to explain their point, but then they explain it so deeply that you end up being confused and you forget the original point, and then, yeah, or maybe that's just me and my dumb head, but that happens a lot. I need to speak slower. Anyways, I'm great at speaking, actually. I'm it's a chapter in the book, you gotta not tear yourself down. So, what does the book cover? And I want to go off bullet points, because when I was looking into this book, I actually found a lot of people cover like 2 things, but they left out a lot of other stuff. Like one of the things that the book like hammers home immensely, which I feel like is the most valuable thing that's talked about, which is how to basically train your mind. Because everybody in the planet does an amazing job about training their body, and kind of just managing their mind, not like training your mind and growing your mind and like being better at stuff, which we'll get into. But not a lot of other people mentioned like a lot of other stuff, which I felt like was fantastic. Like in the book, there's a whole chapter about how to properly make a goal, like a life goal. Not even a life goal, but just like a proper goal to complete something. Because that's something that I feel like, and he talks about all of it, about like how, have you ever like made a goal, but it was too lofty that you just whiffed, and of course we all have that. But then he goes into even more specific, where like, okay, well, have you ever made a goal that was so safe that that you just basically like you got it, but you felt nothing after you got it? And then he makes a great point of, do you ever think like you need to find this happy medium of like something that is super impossible, but also something that is like achievable? And he says the only thing that's different is something that you can control. So if you make a goal where like, okay, I will get up at this time every single day starting now, that is something that you can physically control. Whether that's like you have a cup of water right beside your bed and every morning you just fucking gun it at your face and you're up. You can control that. But if it's like, I want to win 7 competitions in a row, and then you're like, okay, well, what happens if it rains that day and you're playing football, and that slipperiness adds a whole nother thing that you couldn't possibly prepare for, even though you could probably be somewhat prepared for it. Yeah, like that's you're creating a goal that is out of your direct effect, essentially, which is he tries to just rein you in and say, okay, no, try to choose something that is you can work towards. Like maybe don't say I'm going to win all my games, but say I will win, or winning to me would be me focusing, not getting stressed out, and not breaking under the pressure, not letting other people like get in my head. That would be winning. Let me do that 3 times, and if you do that, then that's a goal achieved, but that's something that you can achieve, that's something that you do. So don't create goals that have too many outside conflicting things. And if you do want to have something like that, then break down the goal and make it smarter. So don't just be like, hey, I want to win. Say, okay, I want to create this training program and stick with it for a month and see if I can do that. And then, okay, well, that I did good, I improved, but I didn't improve that much. So let's create a whole different model of how to train and how to get better at my chosen field, and go for that. Okay, that one worked way better. Okay, let's stick with that one for a little bit more until we find that has diminishing returns. But that's the way you build it. You don't just build it for like, I want to win. You need to break it down and say, well, how would I even get close to that? Okay, well, you would need to come up with something, a way to attain a greater skill or greater ease in terms of performing. Anywho, yeah, so there's a great chapter about like how to properly choose a proper goal, and how to seek that goal, and also like a list of requirements of like first of all, you may make a goal that you're not willing to actually pay the price for. So if you want to be like an Olympian, you need to make that a priority every single day of your life. If you want to be like in like peak physical shape, you're going to need to go into the gym and exercise and deal with the soreness that you feel afterwards. Like where if you're like, man, I have like a 9-to-5 job, I have a kid, I don't need to feel like incredibly sore after the fact. In that case, maybe the goal is not worth the price. In that case, you just don't do the goal then. Maybe shoot for just losing a couple pounds and maintaining that weight range by not eating as much, So stuff like that is stuff that he kind of lays out in that chapter, which I think is brilliant, and a lot of people underlook that aspect of it, because I think that's really something that a lot of people mess up on with goal setting. Honestly, there's like 2 or 3 chapters kind of just breaking down the perception of like what a winner is, and that's really helpful, because he talks about. Well, he kind of, like, in these chapters are kind of sprinkled out, like, yeah, like this is one. This is not kind of what I was getting at, but it's kind of, gets the point across. He has, like, these things called action statements for principles, and this is number 8. But it says, I choose to think about, talk about, and write about what I wish to have happen in my life. Now, that leads us into the single... in my opinion, the single greatest advice that this book has, and it's something that a lot of people talk about when talking about this book, but it's the idea of rehearsal. The reason why I word it that way is because, again, as a person who's always kind of keeping an eye on like people who are really successful, and like seeing how they kind of manage life and how they stay happy and improving themselves and all that stuff, you hear this goddamned Oprah Winfrey nonsense all the time, which is like self-image, or not, sorry, that's not it. If you imagine it, it happens, which is fucking weird and crazy. But anyways, yeah, it was like a term coined by Oprah, I think, back in the day, where it's like, if you just think really hard every day that you want to be successful or a millionaire, you did it. You'll get there. And it's horrible. I think it's really bad, because it focuses on the opposite of what you need to do if you're gonna do this. But it's called visualization. That's what it's called. People always call it that way. It's like visualization of like, okay, you think about something and then boom, magic. Give it a week. Boom. And it's like, no, it's not. I mean, at least not for me. I tried, it did nothing. And it makes sense that nothing happens. But this person makes it actually like scientific, makes it make sense, breaks it down into its core components, which is, it's not about imagining something nice, it's about rehearsing what you want to be good at and what you want to be, and viciously pursuing that. And this is also something that he does, which is he explains that in the entire trifecta of Olympians that he met, a lot of them dedicate like 1% of time to mental training and 90% of their time to physical training and stuff like that. But then he asks them, what is like the one thing that is the most crucial in like day one, the event? And it's like, it's your mindset. It's the mindset of, okay, I'm a winner. Okay, it's the mindset of, I can do this. I'm relaxed. I'm calm. I'm just focused. I'm just doing this. It's not like I'm physically able to do it. Like, no, a lot of people can get themselves to be physically able to do a lot of impressive things, but it's about being mentally able to say that, yes, I can do that thing, you know? So that he basically pulls this thing of like, no one mentally prepares in this world, which he thinks is like cataclysmic in terms of like you growing as a human being. But what does he mean by mentally prepare? Well, he means rehearsal. I think that's largely what he's getting at. So, what is rehearsal, Grin? What is this thing you just mentioned? This well, we're not even going to talk about the nonsense one. The way he breaks it down, and to me, it's brilliant. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to hear the book, because I always thought that this made more sense than the whole visualization nonsense. Because I thought there was something there to visualization. I was like, okay, I can kind of see how this could kind of work, but I feel like it's just not. You're aiming at the wrong thing. And then I heard about this book, and I was like, okay, that seems like way more what you should be aiming at. In rehearsal, it's exactly what it sounds like. To expect yourself to just do something because you had a thought about it is nonsense. To expect yourself to do something that you've thought a great deal about, and that you've seen yourself doing, and that you felt yourself doing, and that you've envisioned the scenarios in which the best case scenario would be for happening, and then if you go even further, if you envision the things that maybe could go wrong and how to tighten that up, then yes, then that could be something. And to me, the basic version of this whole thing is, and he mentions studies in the book of like how this is proven. Of like, I think the study was done in a golfing scenario, where they had 3 groups, and the first group was told to just practice their putt. That's it. And then the second group was to practice your putt, but tear yourself down. Tell yourself how terrible you are after you do it. Just think it. That's it. And then the third group was told, don't putt at all, but just set away like an hour or like 10 minutes a day or something to pretending to putt, but smashing the fundamentals of I'm amazing, of I did this. No, actually that was the thing. They didn't even actually like pretend to putt. They just told them to sit down, imagine yourself putting, and imagine yourself hitting the best putt possible, and like throwing good things at you. So like, oh, I putted properly. Oh, I have such a nice swing. Oh, I envisioned the ball perfectly landing in the hole, and I did it. Well done, me. Like that. And in this study, they showed that the person that was training physically to do it, but was tearing themselves down, and then the people that trained to just visualize themselves doing it the best they possibly could, ended up gaining a net bonus than either of the two. I think it was something like that. Something where like, okay, this has some sort of foundation to it. And to me, the thing that, like, a lot of this stuff could be nothing to you. Like, I'm sure you guys are the same way when you hear something and you're like, that I don't really buy it. But then you hear something and you're like, okay, I can kind of see how that could make sense. And to me, the way he also puts it, which I think is brilliant, is you're making a pathway in your brain so that when you are in this situation, you can greater follow that pathway. So you need to, like, literally make a groove in your brain to where, not literally, don't stab your brain open, but yeah, you need to make a way for this to flow so that when you are in this situation, it doesn't feel alien to you. It doesn't feel like, yeah. And then the other thing that he mentions that kind of feeds into that is your brain will calibrate itself based on what it thinks is normal. So if you, like, one of the things he mentions is bowling. So the example this he gives in the book is, say if you're bowling, and let's say John gets so close to making a complete strike. So he gets a strike every single time, but he doesn't. But he's at the last two, or maybe in the last one. And he's freaking out. He's stressed. He's panicked. He's kind of like, oh my God, I could do it. I could get a perfect game, like a perfect game. And then he fails. Now, take that back and say, well, what if John always seen himself getting striking like 100%? He got those all the time. And so when he got to that last bowl, it would just be like, yeah, I'm doing this all the time, and he would just throw and get another strike because he's done it 1,000 times, or he believes that is normal for him. So there's no stress, there's no awkwardness or like agitation, hesitation. There's nothing like that because he's been there before. And these things kind of go together, where those things matter. Also, within the study, they deducted that the brain can't quite tell what is real and what is not. In the same way that I don't know if you've ever been sleeping and you've been thinking about something and then you jump and then your leg kicks out, like stuff like that. Your brain cannot determine what is like. It still perceives things as real. That way, if you think of something like horribly awkward in your brain, like when you see someone online and you cringe, you're experiencing the same thing they are, despite you haven't actually done it. So there's tons of evidence that say that like your brain doesn't really know what is reality at times. So take advantage of that. Pretend in your brain, create a great thing that you want to improve at, project the best possible outcome to that, and make that groove in your brain. Now, that is not it. So that it's like kind of, this is one of the reasons why I like the book so much, or this part of it at least. We're kind of already getting close to visualization in that weirdness. But he says, instead of just saying, think of yourself getting scoring a goal in basketball, like making a goal. He says, okay, well that's nice, but what's even nicer is how you feel when you do it. So first of all, instead of thinking of yourself as like this third person in your brain when you're imagining yourself getting a 3-pointer, instead focus on how you would feel when you do it. Okay, when you sit back in your brain, you're like, okay, well, I would probably feel, I would like to feel, in the best case scenario, I'd like to feel confident. I would like to feel like I feel happy, I feel relaxed, I feel assured, I feel zero judgment about missing, and then I hit it, and it goes whoosh right into the basket. He's like, good, now focus on your emotions. Focus on that for a couple times. Just go through your head and do that a bunch. Okay, so you're just hammering the emotions, and then soon, when you go to do that mental exercise and you jump into your brain to say, okay, I'm going to go shoot the basketball, your emotions are already queued up. And hopefully, eventually, this will have bleed out ramifications in the real world. And then he says, okay, now that's nice. So now you have the idea that you want, you're practicing the fundamentals of how you should feel in that moment, which is super, super important to being able to perform at the best level you possibly can. And then he says, okay, now go even deeper. Go into the details. Go into the meticulous way that you feel the ball, the way you breathe, the way you see and the way you aim, and the way the ball leaves your hands, and the way that it grips your fingers as it departs. And of course, at this point, you probably should have some understanding of how to throw a ball. You need to have he talks about like a lot of people know how to get the physical ramifications of stuff, like just practice the fundamentals of like shooting a ball. But not a lot of people know the mental ramifications of being able to act under pressure, realign yourself to where you're like, yeah, I make 3-pointers all the time. Like when I get to like, oh my God, I'm about to break my record for the most free throws I've ever made. Oh God, oh panic. Instead of being like, yeah, no, I do this all the time. Easy peasy. And then you do it. And I know it seems, to me, it's weird because it kind of does come across as like arrogant in a weird way. But there's nothing, it shouldn't. It shouldn't. And that's my own like weird shit in my brain. I'm not sure if you guys have it too. But it shouldn't feel arrogant to be like, no. Because why is it arrogant if I can do it for sure? You know what I mean? Like if I can put the money where my mouth is, then why is it arrogant? It's just what is my normal, you know? So why not your normal be something that is insane? Make your normal nonsense. But make sure you perceive it as your normal, or else if you see it as something like, oh man, I got lucky, then you're just gonna fail. Basically, you're like increasing the window for yourself to fail. So just keep hammering home the fundamentals of this is just what I do. In fact, he has a term that a lot of people like to throw around with the book, which is that's just like me. That's the term. So whenever you do something that you nail it, either in your head when you're rehearsing the scenario in your brain, or in the real world, say that to yourself. That's just like me. And to me, it's just kind of like that's just like me. Like it's just this flowy kind of sentence that's just like done. Like it's like that. It's like cool guys don't look at explosions kind of moment where you're like, yep. And in the back of your head, you might be like, holy fucking shit. No, stop it. That's easy. That's just what we do. And then you move along. Also, I'm sorry if I'm getting real sweaty. It's been a hot day. It's summer. I don't survive well in summer. My Native American blood is like, no, we survive in cold. Please stop. So yeah, to me, that's like the 3 fundamentals of what, to me, in my experience of like how I improve. And we're going to talk about how I like actually did this and how I'm like, holy shit, this works in a minute. But that would be the way I would break it down. And I don't remember if that's the way he broke it down. But it would be, think of whatever you want to do. Think of the best case scenario for that. Then break it down to, okay, in this moment, how do I feel? And actually feel it. Like that's the thing. You can't be like, I'd feel happy. And then all you see in your head is the word happy. No, you have to feel happy in the scenario. The second thing, this is kind of just in between those two, envision yourself in the first person perspective doing whatever you're doing. Don't think of yourself as like this enigma, this other in your brain, like you're thinking of a story and you're a character. No, think of you as you. And actually what that would look like when you do it. This may depend on how good your imagination is, but he even says that anything is better than nothing in the show. So even if you are in the process. And then after you do both of those, you both have an idea, and then you focus on how you would feel and the emotions surrounding that win. Then go to the details, and then focus on hammering those out and go through the motions that you do things with. So again, if it's three-pointer, make sure you find the basket, make sure you bend your arm, make sure you flick your wrist and it contacts with the ball so it has a spin, so that when it hits the back of the board or the rim, it goes down because the spin is going this way and all that stuff. So you could envision all that stuff and keep hammering that home. And again, because you've already done the emotion stuff, you feel good in the moment and you feel less terrible to do it. Also, because your brain cannot determine what is real and what really isn't, you're going to have less anxiety when you're in the moment about to make a free throw, because you've already been there 100+ times, depending on how much you've done this. And that to me is the other thing that is crucially important, is you need to put the time in. You cannot just do this once and be like, cool, I'm acing it. You need to literally make this a point every 2 times a day or every day. It's not that bad. If you're sitting, like you're going to the doctor's appointment and you're sitting in a chair waiting for 10 minutes, just sit there in the back of your head and think, okay, whatever you want to do, you ram that home. And that could be anything. That could be, I want to be better at public speaking. So guess what? Picture yourself in front of a bunch of people. picture yourself just killing it, just saying your points exactly fine. Everyone's laughing, you're getting your point across quick, clean, concise, boom. And then think about how you feel when you public speak. And then that's the thing also, you need to not address the negative emotion that you're going to be having. You need to remake a groove in your brain, recalibrate your brain, and say, instead of feeling anxiety, I feel relaxed. I feel relaxed. What does relaxed feel like? Because this fucking anxiety of me being in front of a bunch of people is eating me alive. I feel calm. I feel centered. I feel relaxed, confident. Sure, let's throw that in there. Okay, cool. And then you make sure you make that groove in your brain. And then eventually you're like, okay, well, what could I do mechanically that could help this outcome immensely? Okay, well, I could make sure I practice my speech beforehand so I know a general idea of what I'm doing. I could also make sure that I'm not judging myself. Maybe that's involved in the emotional process of you mastering that part of this. And then you just keep hammering that shit home. Now, you might be like, okay, well, Grin, what do you mean? How do you know this works? It just sounds like a bunch of woo-woo to me. I don't know how it would sound like woo-woo to you. Again, it's like it had their studies showing that it could make happen and all that stuff. Anyways, okay, so for me, after reading this, I read this chapter which is called Rehearsal, and there's more into that, into the book, so I don't want to spoil everything, but yeah, there's more in there. He also says it much better, for you to fully understand what he's kind of getting across. So again, highly advise reading it. Anyways, so the night that I was reading this, and this is something that you guys just got to know about me. I am horrible. And I mean horrible. I'm great. You can't, that's also something that he says in the book. You have to fight that part of yourself tooth and nail. You have to not say that. You have to not indulge in you being the way that you don't want to be. I am great. Okay, I am great at going to sleep at the right time. I am so great at getting up on time as well. I'm not the person that needs like 6 fucking alarms to wake up. Yeah. So, anyways, so I was like, okay, this is something that I have like, it's weirdly engraved in my mind, and it's weird because there's like a culture around it, this thing of like a night owl that's happened. It's like, oh, I'm a night owl. I like the night. I'm not a morning person. I don't know. But in the book, one of the chapters, he goes into like, no, bullshit. Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. What do you want to be? You can be you're under no fucking circumstance that you have to be anything. You can do and be whatever you want to be. You don't have to, again, if there's this weird thing where it's stopping you from being and getting more done that you could get done, then don't do that. Train your mind to be the thing that you want to be. If you don't like the fact that you can't get up on time, then fucking make it work. Rehearse the fact that you will get up on time when you want to get up. In my case. So I was like, okay, I'll give this a whirl and see what happens. So I did. I think I dedicated like not that much time, like 15, 20 minutes maybe, just sitting there listening to like this super, super calm reading music, just with no like beats or nothing, just like some hum that helps me, in my opinion, get into my head. And I did everything that he would suggest. I envisioned myself, first, just what I would generally like to do, because that's the way I picture it in my head. I see myself in the third person. I see myself, as soon as I hear my alarm, which is a nice kind of like do-do-do-do song, I hear it, I immediately see myself in the third person, hit my alarm, throw the sheets off, and then I stand up, and then I go brush my teeth, and then I'm off the races. If I do that, I know I can get up. And then I go a little bit, and I do that a couple times, and then I say, okay, now it's time for the first person. Okay, so then I visually see myself looking through my eyes. I wake up, take my head off my pillow, hear my alarm, pause it, throw the blankets off, stand up. Okay, I do that a couple times. And then I'm like, okay, now we're going to handle what we feel. Okay, so when I wake up, I want to feel rested, well rested and alert, really, really alert. So then I sit there and like, what the hell do those feel like again? Okay, I guess alert kind of feels like that. Okay, I guess rested feels kind of like that. Okay. And then I picture myself again opening my eyes. Boom, I picture that emotion. I physically make my brain feel that in this imagination state of that. Now, maybe that's weird. Maybe not a lot of people can like physically, like, this is the weird thing, is later on, I eventually put in my head, I feel happy, and then I realized, holy fuck, I'm actually feeling happy just by thinking of myself feeling happy. Which I'm like, maybe, I'm not sure this is normal. Sure, other people can just channel an emotion and make it happen. But anyways, yeah, so I was like, okay, I feel awake, alert, and I feel happy. I just feel joyful, because I hated the feeling of like waking up and being like, you know? Anyways, so I sat there, and I felt myself being happy, awake, and alert. And I usually stuck to like 3 words, and those emotions would like kind of reburst every time I said them in my mind. And then I would also, again, same thing, I would imagine myself turning off my alarm, swinging open my my covers, standing up, opening my eye, or my eyes are open as soon as my alarm hits, and then I feel awake and alert. And as soon as I stand up, I feel that in spades. The happy one was an iffy one. I felt neutral. But it wasn't negative, so I didn't make it improvement. But I did all that, and then I went to sleep. Actually, no, what honestly happened was I did that, and then I had like an extra 10 minutes before I was like, all right, time to pack it in. So then I sat there and I thought, let's do it for sleeping as well, because I can't sleep like very well at all. Like I can. I sleep well all the time. I totally do not have the problem where I sit there thrashing in my bed for 10 minutes just because I can't sleep. Sorry, an hour because I can't sleep. And I sweat because I'm warm. I overthink. I get headaches because I'm sitting there thinking of some sort of stupid thing, and I can't relax my brain. Totally not me. Anyways, so I had an extra 10 minutes, so then I just did a quick kind of breeze with the same one. I was already kind of feeling it because I already did the one. And I was like, okay, let's dedicate some time to what I would do if I was sleeping. And this is where things got a little weird, because I was like, okay, my ideal way of being would be as soon as my head hits my pillow, I feel sleep like sucking me down a vortex, like just feeling like I'm ready to go, like just, and then I would feel, or sorry, that's what I would do. As soon as my head hit the pillow, I'd feel that or experience that, and then I focus on the feeling of it, which is I would feel my mind go blank. I'd feel this like kind of pull. I don't know why, when I feel like when I'm going to dream slate, I feel this pull at the back of my head where I'm just like, and I finally go. I did that a couple of times. Of course, I went more into it the same way I was describing me going into like waking up on time. And lo and behold, I woke up at 7:30, which is pretty good for me. I usually wake up at 8, and it's reluctant, and it's sometimes 8:30 because I have to go through like all of my alarms to get me there. Not anymore. Never again. That's not me. I don't do that. So anyways, to me, this is proof in the pudding. Yeah, no, yes, it's not like winning a fucking Olympic gold medal, but for me, this is a big thing. This is that's something that I like defined myself as, like a night person, and as a person that just, it's so painful for me to get up. And I've gotten up for 2 weeks straight at 8, because it turns out 7:30, I just die. I feel like toxic sludge. Maybe I will work on making that not a thing. Although I think that adds up to, like, if I go to bed at like 11, I don't think that has enough sleep in it, especially for a person that works out 4 hours a day. Anyways, physical things like exercise, not like shooting a gun. But anyways, I'm sure that also exhausting. To me, that is proof in the pudding. Easily. Again, I cannot describe how that was not me at all. I know some people could be like, I get up all the time, it's super easy. Not for me, it wasn't. That was something that, again, I struggled with always. Specifically going to sleep and then waking up on time. I could kind of just chew through the pain if I set enough alarms. I have one alarm now. One. And for 2 days, for 2 whole weeks, even the weekend, I always have gotten up at the right time. Always. And I'm going to sleep at 11. I used to go to sleep anywhere from 10 to 3 a.m. I love this. But with that being said, that was the first night, and that was a relatively simplistic thing. I didn't have too much complexity to it, and it was just fine. Yeah. So to me, I had a pretty quick return on investment for that. Now, with that being said, though, I did manage to do that for like three more days. And again, he mentioned that it could vary. It could be like, if this is something like a super bad habit that's complex, it could take anywhere from like you having to do it every day for 2 weeks. I only had to do it for like 2 or 3 days. And whenever I break my cycle, I'll just jump in and do it again. Right before I go to sleep, probably at like 9:30, I'll sit there for like 20 minutes and just hammer home this idea in my head. rehearse it, replay it in my mind again and again and again, and hopefully get the desired outcome that I want. So that is the crux of the, to me, like the book, and like one of the most, well, not the crux, again, that's one of the things I kind of feel bad for the amazing person who wrote the book, Larry Burr, I believe is his name, or something like that. Yeah, is that he just seems like a lot of people dissolve his book into like this one thing. But that is also because there's like 4 chapters explaining why you want to be a winner, explaining why you want to mentally prepare. And he has this whole thing called mental management, which again, he says one of the things that not nearly enough people dedicate time to is mentally preparing yourself, mentally stabilizing yourself, mentally training. A lot of people do a lot of like learning. A lot of people do a ton of stuff, but physical learning even, but they don't mentally make sure their brain can handle stress and scenarios like that. And one of the things he also mentions, if you're like a competitor and not just a person that wants to improve themselves in situations that they find weakness in, if you're like a basketball player, and you want to work on your shot, your dribbling, your victory, whatever, eventually your body will wear out to the point where you cannot physically train anymore. But you know what you can do? Mentally train. You can mentally put yourself there over and over and over again, and envision the way your body moves and reacts. And honestly, if you're like me and you're imagining something, sometimes your body actually does move on its own and do that kind of stuff. Not to the point where like, if you envision punching someone, you're going to punch your wall. No, nothing like that. At least I hope not. Jesus Christ. Oh, this is the other thing that's super, super big with the book, which I 100% agree, and it kind of warmed my heart to hear this, and this was one of the things that made me feel less weird about the whole winning thing. Because when someone's just dead set on winning, that's it, the end. Like, I'll sell my leg, my family just want to win, that's, blech. Like, to me, it's just something kind of too much about it, and just like to me it's like it's being suffocated by ego, which is not wrong to have some ego, but just not to the point where you're a nightmare, you know. But he talks about, in the process of being a winner, it is not winning that is the thing that makes you a winner. It is a winning performance that makes you a winner, aka it is the process of winning. So he says, focus whenever you want to be good at anything. Focus on the process of doing something. So do not focus, again, he gives an example that's fantastic, which is an example of a person golfing, and he was training a lot, but he just couldn't, he kind of like choked at the last minute a lot of times, and he just found himself like losing skill when he was in the game and all that kind of weird stuff. And then he was getting trained by Larry Burr, the guy that made the book, and his mental trainer told him, instead of focusing on like the score, anything like that, get rid of all that. Don't ever think about the score. Don't ever think about anything like that. Just think about what you would do if you were going to win. Like, what would be the winning performance? Just focus on performing. Don't focus on the idea of winning. Just focus on performing at the highest level you can. That's the best way of saying it. Just focus on performing at the highest level that you can possibly do that. And hopefully, if you're setting the right goals, again, the higher the goal, the more your brain will automatically try to normalize, like put you back into what is normal. So the more you say that you can do something that's pretty impossible, and believe it, and that becomes something that is normal to you, your brain will try to course correct and make sure that you get to that faster, rather than saying like this is the potential that you could possibly make, but instead you're like, oh, let's just make a reasonable goal. Your brain will stay here in the middle of this, what is normal. But if you're here, then you can get around here, if that makes any sense. Maybe that does make sense. But yeah, the process is what he says. In fact, this golfer ended up getting like, I think it was like a perfect game, like winning this huge championship for $1 million in this golfing tournament. And he has like an iconic line, which is after he was he finished making this putt, this dude walked up to him and shook his hand, his caddy, and he was kind of surprised. He shook his hand, and then he just kept walking to, I think, the next hole or something like that. But he didn't realize until his wife sprung into his arms that he won. And then his iconic line is, he said, "Did I win?" I think that was what he said. Did I win? Like he wasn't even thinking about it. He was just focusing on performing the best he could. And he's like, that's how you improve. You don't focus on winning. You focus on playing at the highest level you can possibly muster, and focusing on like, okay, it's not about the points and how much, oh, we're down by one, oh fuck, one more point and we can do it. No, it's just get rid of all that. Just focus on, okay, I need to get that ball over there and no one's going to stop me. and I'm going to focus down and make sure I have my proper stance. I'm thinking of football for whatever reason. I'm going to make sure I'm in my proper stance. I want to make sure I'm moving as fast as I possibly can. I'm also going to make sure I'm keeping aware of my surroundings so I can dodge someone if they come at me. I'm just going to keep running, and no matter what grabs me, I'm not going to stop. And that's what is moving or doing your best peak performance thing. You're not focusing on the variables that you can't control. You're just focusing on the variables that you can and performing at the highest level that you possibly can in this moment. Nothing else matters. Everything else is black and white. You're just focusing on what's black. Go. So rehearsal, process is key, and the other thing is honestly just like also goal setting is to me is fantastic, that chapter. And then just the reimagining of like him talking to winners is really interesting, because that's the first couple chapters is him kind of like telling you why anybody can be a winner, but also the mindset of winners, which is really interesting. Like a lot of the times he mentioned a person who is another shooter, Olympic shooter, who ended up he would like walk around and always say that like, a lot of people want my medal. A lot of people are looking at my medal, but that's my medal. Like that's mine, and he would not stop saying that. And then the other thing he mentions in the book, which is fantastic, is the value you get from like building up others is inherent to you building up yourself to some extent. And then he also has some chapters about like if you get nervous before the day of a competition or like at the day of whatever, envision yourself winning the competition over and over and over in your head, and then eventually you'll just go to sleep because you'll be taking away the stress or even in the thought of, and you'll be like devouring doubt with this overwhelming sense of I won, I'm gonna win, and that. I forgot about that entirely, but that's also incredibly valuable too. That's something that's worthy of talking about. Okay, so let's try to be quick about this. So he has these three things. To me, he's like these are the three things that are like what kind of at the core of who you are as a human being, and they need to be in alignment in order for you to be successful. That is the conscious, the subconscious, and the self-image. So the conscious is conscience, whatever it's called, however you say it, is the act of you consciously doing something. So that is you consciously, if you want to get better at playing guitar. So that's you consciously holding the notes as you're playing. You're physically like directly outputting this thought. Then subconscious is when you get so good that you can kind of relax and your body autopilots it. And then the self-image is kind of like that standard that I was talking about, where if your self-image is terrible, like you're like, I'm a loser, like the guy who was bowling that I mentioned, the guy who's like, but I never get like a full strike. Basically, all my shots were strikes. I don't ever do that. My self-image tells me that I'm trash and that this is super odd and not normal. Then it doesn't matter how much conscious skill you have, nor how much subconscious skill you have when your self-image is dragging your ass down to the bottom. The same thing with both. Basically, all three of these things need to be in the proper alignment. So you need to have trained enough, so you can't just imagine yourself 1,000 million times doing something and then expect yourself to do it perfectly as well when your body just physically doesn't know how to react to doing that. There are certain cases like sleeping, which I think helps, which is a lot of mental game, which is you actually sleeping and then waking up is you also mentally, but sometimes there are things that are physical. But anyways, the point is that again, if you do not believe for the self-image, if your self-image is terrible, then you will not attain anything, because your self-image is so terrible that it won't allow itself to. Your body will normalize what is normal to you, and it will vilify what is abnormal. So again, if it is not like you to it could be anything. If it's not like you to talk to girls, if it's not like you to be charming, if it's not like you to be funny, if it's not like you to be insert whatever, you will never be that. You'll never be any of those things, even if you want them. Your body will realign itself. Same thing as you could talk to 1,000 girls. You could even autopilot doing it. But if you're like, yeah, but I don't ever like date, or no one ever likes me, again, all that's useless. At this point, like you're never gonna actually close the deal or anything like that's gonna happen. And then vice versa. You could have the self-image that's like, yeah, I'm the best, I'm charming, I'm kind, I'm interesting, all that. But you have no experience on how to talk to people, period. It doesn't matter if you think you're like killing it when you're like you have a great aura, you can project yourself really well, you're feeling good, but then you're just like, what do I say? Oh, yikes. And it's to me, it's funny because when you're talking about stuff like that, it's like kind of a marriage of I think it is helpful to rehearse in that manner, because don't get self-image completely detached to conscious either, because you can rehearse and mirror these two to where, like, again, if you rehearse in your brain, okay, well, how would I talk to anyone? Maybe it's the person that I am attracted to, and then you go in your brain, you do the same thing. Well, in the best case scenario, I would just see us having fun and laughing and me joking around and not, yeah. And then you go deeper and you're like, okay, well, I would feel confident, happy, and playful, and I wouldn't be all nervous. Okay, great. And then you do that a bunch of times, and then you're like, okay, now what would I say? And that's where the conscious kind of comes into this realm of like your self-image and all that stuff. So we're like, okay, well, what would I actually say in this matter? What would be the detail of me, and what would I say that's funny? What could be a good opener? All those things. And then that could help facilitate both the self-image, the conscious mind, and then by just doing the conscious stuff, you reinforce the subconscious. So by you talking to people every day and practicing actually doing that and coming up with like things to say, the subconscious will learn, and it will always keep taking mental notes of, okay, well, that worked. And then eventually, without you knowing it, you're making jokes to your friends, you're in a bar, you're being charming without even knowing it, stuff like that. So that's stuff that I think you can take it outside of the realm of like winning games, which he even says, you know, it's not about just like winning a sport. It's about training your mind, and making it so that in a situation that you cannot otherwise be in all the time. Like, he's an Olympian. He I think it's like for every 5 years you gotta be in that space, in the grand tournament. Everyone's looking at you, all that. So for moments like that, or maybe you're like me or someone else who's like, yikes, what would I say in this situation to make this less awkward, or how would I approach this person, or whatever. When you don't have that much experience in being in those situations, you can still rehearse what those would be, so that when you are in that situation, your brain's not like, oh fuck, go panic, survive, what, this is new, I don't know what to do, this is all new, overload, and yeah, so we're like, okay, no, I've kind of been here before, no, bullshit, I've been here, I've done this 1,000 times, yeah, it was in my head, fuck it, my brain can't tell the difference, let's go for it. And yeah, and that, to me, that's such a fantastic thing. The one thing I will end on, though, and this to me is like, if you've liked anything that I talked about the book, absolutely go read it, please. It's fantastic. I will link the full name in the description, as well as I'll probably put it in the title as well, the name of the book. And this is a whole other chapter that he also does, which is you need to hold yourself accountable for this. So one of the things that I did, oh my back, I got this big old book. Cool, you see it? I hope it was in frame so badly. Anyways, yeah, so I got that big old book, and I made sure I did that. So I came up with a plan. It's something that also gets into the book of like how to properly goal set and chase a goal. So you come up with a plan of something that would get you what you desire, and then you do that every day. So one of the things I have every day is I wanted to grow my YouTube channel, but I also wanted to grow it in a way that I would like. I wouldn't just want to get it going for no reason. So I wanted to, so I basically rehearse what would be like a very good record sitting for me. So where I can record a video and I feel good, and I feel charming, I feel like I could do all this stuff. I hate saying the word charming because it's just kind of weird whenever someone says it about themselves, but I want to get that across. I want to be endearing to people and make sure they don't hate me immediately on sight. If you do, that just, okay, I'm sorry for that, I guess. But so that's what I do every day now. I dedicate like a 20 or an hour, half an hour, something like that, to just rehearsing what that would be. And then I also made another plan to take myself out of my head, and try to think of video ideas, what people might want to see if they were a fan of this game or that game or this show or that show, and what they would want to see talked about and stuff like that. And then I made a plan also for after all that, after I do all that in a day, I look at my YouTube analytics. My whole thing right here that I'm trying to end on is write shit down and follow it. So one of the things I also have in that book is it's called rehearsal, top of the page, and I have listed recording, sleeping, of course, sleeping and waking up, streaming, and then I have a bunch of other stuff that I keep adding whilst I'm doing it. Like, oh, yeah, I have a problem with hesitating, like super bad. I want to stop that. So then I write that down. Okay, that's something I need to work on mentally. I need to work on putting myself in a situation, rehearsing, not hesitating, just being like, go into it. And I try to go into it relaxed, and I try to do that over and over and over again. And it's like mentally training, and it doesn't need to take 5 hours. It could take, again, like 20 to 30 minutes every day will compound into something fantastic. But I will say focus on one thing at a time. You don't want to be working on like 7 types of rehearsal in one day. I feel like you get bogged down and be like, ooh. You want to create a groove in your brain to where whenever you are put in that situation, it will just follow that stream, that path. And yeah, I don't think you need to like re-establish that groove unless you really have departed. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, I don't mean to talk your ear off. This was the length of a podcast for me. But again, I would highly advise this book. I'm not sure if I did it justice. I probably didn't. There's so many more layers to the book. Again, more and more like ideas of mental management. He has a whole system, Larry Burr. It's a whole system of how to break down problems that you may have with your self-image, problems that you may have with not being consciously doing things, training basically, problems you may have with not being able to engage your subconscious, and trusting yourself to do the things that you trained it to do, and just a slew of other things, as well as just helping you get your, like, again, it's a self-help book to some extent, so it is like there are a couple chapters there just being like, this is how you get your shit together. This is how you make shit happen. If you're feeling lost, which I feel like in the world right now, everybody is, this is a great way to find out how to build atop your mind, which I don't feel like too many people show you. Again, there's a lot of books out there that show you a lot of things, but they don't exactly actually show you step by step what you should do to mentally strengthen yourself, to mentally manage the way you feel. And there's 1,000 examples of, I don't want to go on into it because we're running out of time. There's 1,000 examples of people who do stuff like this. Like one of the examples that pops to mind is GSP, an amazing Canadian fighter. He always talks about before he goes into a fight, he looks at himself in the mirror and he tells him that he's the best fighter in the world. And he constantly says that. And then when the match is done, he's like, okay, I'm whatever, like he'll gear himself down a little bit, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't like try to build himself up to be a fucking king and a god in his mind, so when he goes out there he performs like that because he is that. He's convinced himself that he is that amazing and that good, to where when he's fighting he just falls back on being actually that good. And yeah, whether you want to like tame yourself down a little bit, again, I think that's the thing, like the ego and the victor's mindset don't have to be the same thing. You don't have to, like, by increasing one, you don't have to increase the other. You just are, you understand that you are capable of potential greatness because you've been there before and you know what to do and you practice on what to do in that situation. And yeah, it feels a lot less scary, daunting, and horrifying. And I would highly advise reading this book, especially if but nothing to just give it a chance. Because again, I think it is fantastic. It has made crazy strides within my life personally right now. And I want to stay with it for a long, long while coming. Again, can't believe it cured my weird sleep nonsense that I made in my head. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for your time. Hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Let me know if there's any books that you would suggest that are like this, self-help books that help improve your mind, or maybe just a fantasy one. Maybe you want to gear down and watch a good old fiction book. Don't have to always be on, although hopefully there's an audiobook, because, you know, I love you, Larry Bird, but geez Louise, goddamn is it hard to find your goddamn audiobook. Although again, it's really not that hard to read. Anyways, thank you so much for your time, ladies and gentlemen. You've been nothing shy of lovely. Thank you again. Subscribe button over there if you're new, as well as 2 videos further that way. Go check out the nonsense. Appreciate all of you so much, and goodbye.